Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving headfirst into the lore, the drama, and the wonderfully chaotic evolution of the absolute biggest sporting event on the planet. If you've been looking for a short clip on FIFA Cup history that covers the essentials, from those unbelievable underdog triumphs to outright stolen trophies, well, you are definitely in the right place. Let's get right into it. To really wrap our heads around the sheer gravity of the World Cup, we just need to look at the 2006 final. 715 million viewers tuned in. I mean, think about that for a second. That is literally 1/9 of the entire human population coming to a complete standstill for a single 90-minute football match. It's absolutely wild. But as you'll see, getting this tournament to such a massive scale was a really bumpy ride. Chapter 1: Birth of the World Cup. So how did this all start? Well, we can actually trace its very humble origins back to 1872 with a scoreless friendly match between Scotland and England. It kind of slowly snowballed from there, eventually becoming an official Olympic sport by 1908, though back then it was strictly for amateur players. It actually wasn't until 1930 that FIFA finally stepped up and gave the sport its own independent stage, launching the very first World Cup down in Uruguay. But let me tell you, that 1930 inaugural tournament was a complete logistical nightmare. For the European teams, just getting to South America meant enduring an exhausting, weeks-long boat ride across the Atlantic, not to mention paying absolutely insane travel costs. Because of that, only 13 teams actually showed up to compete, but the locals loved it. Uruguay ended up defeating Argentina in front of a roaring crowd of 93,000 people, crowning them the first ever champions. Chapter 2: The Stolen Gold. Now, the lore off the pitch is just as crazy as what happens on it. Originally, the winners received the Jules Rimet Trophy, but just months before the 1966 tournament in England, while it was on public display in London, the trophy was stolen. Gone. Scotland Yard was in a total panic, to the point where they secretly started making a replica. So, who do you think actually saved the 1966 World Cup? You literally can't make this up. The hero was a dog. Specifically, a black and white collie named Pickles. While out for a totally normal walk with his owner, Pickles sniffed out a suspicious package wrapped in newspaper under a garden hedge in London, and boom, inside was the intact Jules Rimet Trophy. Pickles became an instant absolute legend, even snagging his very own invite to England's victory banquet that summer. Sadly, the story of that original trophy doesn't really have a happy ending. Fast forward to 1970, Brazil wins it for a third time and gets to keep it permanently. But then the 1983 curse struck. The trophy was stolen again in Rio de Janeiro, and this time it was reportedly melted down by thieves for scrap. It was a heartbreaking loss, and it's exactly what forced FIFA to create the solid 18-karat gold cup we all recognize today. Chapter 3: Icons, Magic, and Madness. Okay, let's talk about the players who made this tournament what it is. In the 1986 quarterfinal against England, Diego Maradona literally punched the ball into the net to score. It was hugely controversial. And when reporters pressed him on it afterwards, instead of backing down, he dropped this immortal, swaggering quote, "A little with the head of Maradona, a little with the hand of God." He made sure the legend became bigger than the match itself. What's wild is how that single match perfectly captured the sheer duality of Maradona. He pulled off a scandalous move with the hand of God, right? But then, just 4 minutes later, he takes the ball from his own half, elegantly dribbles past 5 English players, and scores what is universally known as the goal of the century. It was pure madness, immediately followed by pure magic. And speaking of madness on the biggest stage, we absolutely have to mention Zinedine Zidane in the 2006 final between France and Italy. This was supposed to be his glorious final professional match. Instead, during extra time, he shockingly headbutts Italian defender Marco Materazzi right in the chest. He gets a red card, and that resulting image of him walking solemnly past the World Cup trophy in defeat, completely unforgettable. The tournament is also a massive mirror for global geopolitics. Sometimes it gets really ugly, like the 1962 Battle of Santiago between Chile and Italy, which literally devolved into punches and needed armed police to escort players away. But then, you contrast that with the 1998 group game between the USA and Iran. Despite intense, hostile diplomatic relations off the pitch, the players came together and exchanged white flowers of goodwill before kickoff. It really shows the sport's unique power. Chapter 4: Culture Beyond the Pitch. So who actually rules this sport? When we look at the numbers, Brazil stands alone at the top. They've played in every single tournament and remain the only nation to lift the trophy 5 times. Then you have Germany and Italy right on their heels with 4 wins apiece. These specific nations haven't just won games. They've effectively defined the entire culture of winning in football. Another fun way to track the culture of the games is through the mascots. They've evolved so much over the decades. Back in 1966, England gave us a very straightforward national symbol, a lion named Willie. Fast forward to 1990, and Italy goes totally avant-garde with an abstract stick figure called Chow. South Africa brought us Zakumi the leopard in 2010, and coming up in 2026, we're getting a whole trio, Clutch the eagle, Maple the moose, and Zayu the jaguar, to represent the multiple host nations. When you step back and look at the whole timeline, from 1930 right up to today, the format of the tournament itself has had to constantly evolve. It transformed from a tiny, exclusive club of nations taking a boat ride into an undeniably global phenomenon that bridges the past to the present. Chapter 5. The Modern Global Spectacle. Now let's talk modern scale, because the financial explosion of this sport is staggering. Just look at the growth in prize money. Back in 1982, the winning team took home $2.2 million. Fast forward to 2026, and that number is leaping to a record-breaking $50 million. We are in a completely different stratosphere now. And that massive financial growth perfectly mirrors the tournament's physical expansion. For decades, it was pretty tightly capped at 16 teams, heavily dominated by Europe and South America. But by 1998, FIFA expanded it to 32 teams. This was a total game changer. It gave nations from Africa, Asia, and North America a real shot, paving the way for mind-blowing underdog stories, like Morocco's historic, thrilling run to the semifinals in 2022. Yet, here is the absolute wildest part. Despite all that expansion and inclusion, the very top of the mountain remains incredibly exclusive. Over 80 different countries have competed over the last century, but only an elite club of 8 legendary nations has ever won the title. Breaking into that winner's circle is arguably one of the hardest feats in all of global sports. Which brings us to the future. We are heading into an unprecedented 48-team tournament hosted by the US, Canada, and Mexico in 2026. The stage has literally never been larger, and the stakes have never been higher. So I leave you with this to ponder. With so much shifting in the world of global football, who's going to step up and capture the next golden era? Thanks for joining us for this explainer, and we'll see you next time.